Okay, we're recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome to our Spill the Tea event where juniors will get to ask all of their burning questions about the college application process from our most recent experts, our seniors. And I want to thank all of our seniors and congratulations as well for joining us today. So they have a ton of information to share, and I am definitely not, I want to get straight to that. How are we doing? We got more people. Okay. But I want to start with some introductions. So first off, we have Maura. Do you want to let us know where you are going to be attending next year and also a little bit about the process of how you got there?
Yeah. Sorry, pollen. I am going to be at UNC Chapel Hill next year. I was accepted to the Honors College there. And the reason I'm going there is because I was lucky enough to get a full scholarship to attend. I also applied to, I generally just did a lot of like big state schools with good, like big research universities in the Southeast. So I also applied to the University of Virginia, UF, UGA, and so on. And I did almost all of that early action.
Oops, thank you. If you guys want to mute yourself, just in case there's any background noise, that'd be great. And I wanted to mention one other thing. If you want to throw any questions into the chat, feel free. We will definitely try and address as many as possible, and we would love to hear what your questions are. Next up, Ryan.
All right, so I'm going to Georgia Tech for mechanical engineering. I applied to 4 other schools, but none of them were really quite as well known for engineering except for MIT, which I didn't get in. So that decision was basically made for me, and that's why I'm going there. And also Zell Miller, it's pretty cool for that.
Awesome, congratulations. Henry?
All right, well, I'm going to University of Georgia next year. And I applied to, I think, about 9 schools. And I really didn't have an idea of where I wanted to go because of COVID. I couldn't tour over the summer. It was kind of like my plan. So yeah, I just applied to a lot, mostly in the South, and narrowed it down to Georgia once I got in. So
Cool. Congratulations. Rihanna?
Hi, y'all. I'm Rihanna. I will be attending North Carolina A&T in the fall, which is one of the best public HBCUs, and that's really what pushed my decision. I wanted to go to a great school that was a HBCU, and my family is originally from North Carolina, so it made the decision a lot easier for me because I felt like I would be in between my Atlanta home and my North Carolina home, and overall, it's just a good school. It's a school that I felt my heart in, so that's why I chose NCAP. And I'm sorry, I applied for maybe about 15 schools. I applied for mostly schools on the Eastern Shore, and I was basically mostly applying for HBCUs, but I did apply for UGA. Didn't get accepted, but whatever.
Sounds like you landed at a great place. Esther?
Okay, so I'm Esther, and I'm going to NYU next year. And I'm majoring in social work, and I think I applied to like 7 or 8 schools, got rejected from all of my reach schools except for NYU, which was hurtful, but you know, it worked out in the end.
All right, awesome. So this is going to be obviously a little different than in years past. When did you guys start applying or thinking about college, and what was your first step? And something about, did you end up actually taking the SAT, ACT? Do you have any recommendations around that right now? I know it is a little different for the next couple of years, but thought we'd throw that out there too.
yeah, well, for me, actually, I would look towards more like the summer before you start applying to get all the ACT, SAT stuff done. Because I didn't have mine done, and I was doing it at the same time as applications in the fall, and it got a little stressful. So I think it's better to try and do that stuff in advance.
I don't think so.
So
Okay, so to try and get it done before the end of your junior year, if you are planning to take the ACT or SAT.
Mm-hmm.
You guys agree?
Yeah, just in general, I found that getting everything done as
I didn't know.
early as possible was just really helpful.
I
I
didn't know.
kind of a super aggressive planner.
No.
I had my whole list like basically finalized by the end of junior year. Just
Just me?
I knew what I wanted out of schools, and I did all the research and made all the spreadsheets and whatever. And that was really helpful because like I mentioned, I applied early action to just about every school that I applied to, except for like a couple of reaches. So it was nice just like knowing where I was applying. Over the summer, I was able to find the supplemental essay prompts. So I got started on essays fairly early as well, and that really helped relieve some of the stress. So yeah, basically just, the sooner you figure out what's going on, the better, because it relieves a lot of pressure later.
Yeah. So
Okay, and sorry.
sorry.
Oh,
You
yeah.
good.
I started college stuff in middle school because I went to this charter school that kind of focused on college. And granted, it's changed a lot since middle school, but it was definitely good to start
As
that
much as a
early.
sketchbook. The sketchbook is 3/4.
Okay, and so then I started the actual process in March of my junior year, only because of COVID. So yeah, I'd say start early. I wrote my Common App essay in March as well, so very, very early.
That is very
I
early.
started my college process, I want to say 10th grade summer going to 11th grade. And I had already taken the PSAT. So I knew the SAT was coming around with, our school offers the SAT. And luckily I did score well on that. I went to a lot of sessions to study and get tutoring for the SAT so that my junior year, luckily, of course, we had no idea COVID was coming. I didn't have to worry about SAT or ACT scores. And I took a scholarship class that summer with the summer camp that I went to. And basically they taught us the ins and out of applying for in-school scholarships, outside scholarships, and things like that. So I wasn't really sure of what college I wanted to go to, but I was, however, like pretty sure that I wanted to go to college. And even though I know I wouldn't be able to afford college, I knew that it was a way for anybody who wants to go to be able to do scholarships and grants. So I started about my 10th grade year.
What's the program that taught you about scholarships?
City of Atlanta, it's the Atlanta Teen Leaders Academy. It's basically, we were part-time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, camp counselors, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we went to the Teen Academy and they taught us different things like you had different majors. I was a business major, but they did have things like music, technology. We had to take sex ed, scholarship classes, and a lot of different courses, but that was a great program and it really kickstarted me with my college process and my business.
Very cool. Anything else to add about SAT prep, ACT prep that you guys found? Okay. What was your process for getting recommendations from teachers, counselors? Any suggestions that you have with that process?
I talked to I got 2 recommendations. Depending on the number of schools you're applying to, you might only need 1 for Common App, but a lot of reach schools ask for 2. Like I know all the Ivies do and whatever. It really just kind of depends. So I asked my 2 teachers, I think like the last week of junior year, just because with some teachers it fills up fast, like, Mr. Pope type people who everyone really likes and who get a lot of requests for recommendations eventually just like run out of capacity to write them. So that's another thing that's good to do early.
What type of recommendations did you get? So you got 2 different types?
No, they were both just like teacher recommendations, but a lot of schools will ask for multiple teacher recommendations. Well, not a lot, but like some schools ask for multiple teacher recommendations, so it's just good to ask multiple teachers.
And also,
Ryan?
I don't know about everywhere else, but at least for me applying to MIT, I specifically needed a humanities teacher and a STEM teacher. So keep that in mind too, if that's where you're applying to. Look at what
I can agree with that. Like you're gonna have different types of recommendations that you're gonna need from specific people. Like you have some, especially with applying for scholarships, you're gonna have some that are gonna ask for scholarships from somebody you're not related to, like a mentor, or some from like a principal, some from a counselor. It's different for everybody. But what you want to do is pay attention to the dates that all of the applications and things are due, and basically set aside time when you need to be requesting that letter of recommendation time. I literally used to, well, still do, put a box next to a date. Like I have a weekly checklist and I put a box to when I need to request a letter of recommendation from whoever I may be getting it from. And that's just important so that you're giving that person that you're requesting it from time to be able to, you know, really write your recommendation.
Yeah,
You actually, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'd say give the teacher at least a month notice from when they need it, if not like significantly more. I got 4 recommendations, a counselor, my sports coach, and then 2 teachers from Grady. One was also my club advisor, and then one was just like a basic teacher. And it also looks really good to get a teacher rec for like when they teach something that you're majoring in. So like if you're doing history, get it from your APUSH teacher or something like that.
Also, there are a couple of schools that have like weird recommendation, like Dartmouth has an optional peer recommendation that is like optional, but it's really better if you submit one. So it's good to keep an eye out for that sort of thing, because every so often you'll get kind of a curveball and have to like ask one of your friends to write you a recommendation letter.
Absolutely. Ria, I think you touched on this a little bit, but did you have any keys to organization during this process, or how you managed to organize all of the information that you had to turn in and everything like that?
Absolutely. I want to say the last semester of my senior year, the first semester is when I really started. Like I bought a weekly planner, and basically I try to like knock out 3+ goals a day that's working towards my greater goals. For instance, I know I'm trying to go to college for free, so I need to have applying for scholarships in my weekly checklist periodically. Like, you know, or I know if I have a major goal, how can I put something on my checklist to make sure that, you know, I'm not forgetting it or it's not becoming overwhelming? Because when you know you have things to do but you don't have a plan, it can seem like it's so much, but a lot of times it isn't when you break it down and you plan. So I highly recommend. And I know sometimes people like joke on you for being a planner, but I don't care. It's the Virgo in me as well. So, but yes, I keep me a weekly planner, and it helps me a lot with my daily activities and relieves me of a lot of stress. And it just feels so much better when you see yourself checking off things on your list daily, like I did this, you know what I'm saying? So I highly recommend a planner, whether it's daily, monthly, weekly, whatever.
That sounds great. Does anyone else have any tips or tricks that they use during the process? Different method? No. Okay. Brianna, you also touched on this, and I think a few other people did as well, but scholarships, one of the biggest topics with college applications. When did you start looking for scholarships? What was that process like? And what sort of advice do you have in that category? I know Mara,
go ahead. Oh, sorry. I started looking for scholarships. Like I started taking it seriously, definitely in my senior year, because I'm not gonna lie, I brushed it off a lot, you know. And as it's starting to approach, you start to see those actual costs of attendance. So with my scholarship processes, the first thing I did was, once I'm realizing, okay, what schools I really do want to go to, I go to their websites, and you can literally type in on their website scholarships, and they'll bring up lots and lots in their database of in-house scholarships. And then they always say in college, like, you never know, just go to your financial aid and ask for a scholarship. I haven't got to do that yet, but I will be doing that. And then you do have like major scholarship databases like JLV Counseling, scholarship.com, bold.org. I've been applying for many through Bold. That's my best one that I've been applying to. And basically you're just finding things that apply to you. Like you're going to have some scholarships that apply to like your personal life, asking you about, you know, personal experiences, write about this, write about that. And a lot of times those essays can be discouraging, but I look at it like this is money that we're talking about, free money. Like, I'm gonna write these essays, and just give yourself time and just type. Like, don't do too much. I know they always say brainstorming and stuff, but what's been working for me is just typing. And really, it's your story. So make it about you and make it as sincere as possible, because that's what people are looking for. They're looking for people, these scholarship people are looking for people who are going to be making changes. So let them know why you should receive a scholarship. And that's just been how I've been applying for scholarships.
That's great advice.
Yeah, I definitely think it's good, certainly to like have a really clear sense of the story that you're telling. Also, something that I found helpful just in terms of saving time, I applied to, I think around 50 scholarships, 50 private scholarships, before I heard back about aid from UNC, which is where I ultimately ended up committing. And so I made a spreadsheet, which was really helpful just for staying organized. I also really tried to find scholarships that sort of had prompts that would work with existing essays. You have to write so many supplemental essays if you apply to a lot of schools for just like straight up college applications. And a lot of the time you can use those same essays for scholarship applications if you just modify them a little bit. So it saved me a lot of time to have just like 2 or 3 essays on topics that come up a lot in prompts for scholarships that I could submit to multiple places. And then also, you know, depending on the school, and this is something that's really good to research in your college search process, some schools give out way more institutional aid than others. So even if you're not necessarily going to qualify for need-based aid, there are certain schools that I applied to where I knew even if I didn't get anything based on need, they were probably going to give me merit-based money. Like Furman gives a lot of merit aid out. UNC is also, as public schools go, very good about giving you merit aid if they feel like they should. And yeah, like that's a really big source of scholarship money, is just, you know, from schools through your plain old applications to college. And that's another advantage of applying early, is that a lot of the time they give out scholarship money to early action people more than regular decision people. And then also, this is like kind of an aside, but with financial aid in general, I personally was in the position of having a parent who I didn't want included on my need-based aid calculations. And so if you're in that position, like if you have a parent who you like haven't seen in years, or if you have an unhealthy relationship with them, or if there's like something going on there, you can appeal to schools through this thing called, if it's a school that does the CSS profile, you can file a non-custodial parent waiver request, which is basically like, hey, you shouldn't include this information when you calculate my need-based aid. And if it's both parents, like if you have a bad relationship with both of your parents, you can also file for this thing called a dependency override. But that was just a really useful process to know about for me, and you don't really read about it very often. So if you're in that position, it's worth looking into dependency override or a non-custodial parent waiver request, because, you know, you don't need to factor in stuff in need-based aid that's not necessarily like relevant. Sorry, that wasn't necessarily a great explanation, but yeah.
No, that's really helpful and a great point.
Yeah, you taught me something new with that one.
Anyone else have anything to add about the financial aid process so far, or scholarships
Yeah.
that you learned? Esther?
So I'd say the first step is to not shoot down a school or decide to not apply to a school because it's expensive. Because for me, NYU, I was not going to apply just for that reason. It's notorious for being super ridiculously expensive. But I applied like an hour before the deadline, and just like whatever, they'll reject me, and if they accept me, they won't give me any money. but they ended up giving me like a significant scholarship. Don't know why, but I'll take it. And from there, I've been doing more local scholarships because I've had more luck with those. I was using Unigo or whatever that website is that has like those mass scholarships for like $25,000. And those are crazy and almost impossible to get. You can take the chance, but I'd say focus more on like those local sorority scholarships and like Grady scholarships and stuff like that.
Yeah, the CCC does a scholarship every year, right? I feel like I've seen, yeah.
Yes,
So
so we
there-
do $500.
Things and fewer people apply to those. Got a much better
Yeah.
shot there.
I definitely have to say I agree with Esther on those smaller scholarships. When you see those small amounts compared to those big amounts, you like a lot of times think it may not be worth it to apply, but those little scholarships will add up a lot quicker than trying to apply for a big scholarship, which 9 times out of 10 you won't get because the pull for it is so grand, especially the ones that you don't have to, it's no essay scholarships. I think it's a scam if you ask me. I never seen nobody win those scholarships, but I personally just won a Grady scholarship, the legacy scholarship myself. So I can say you have better luck with applying for those smaller, more local scholarships, smaller pools of people to choose from.
Congrats. Ryan?
I was just going to add something that the juniors might not know is that if you're a senior, you've been getting emails from your counselors throughout the year, and they've been including a bunch of local scholarships. So that's my process has been going through those and seeing which ones are applicable. But that's kind of simplified the process a lot for me.
That's a good point. Pay attention to some of those emails that we like to ignore sometimes. Henry, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. I'll just say my scholarship experience was pretty different than like Mora's. I only applied to like 2, I think, and I got one of them, which was great. I found out the other night. But yeah, I would try and reach out more than I did to actually look for them, because I would just kind of wait till one would come to me. You know, I get like an email about it or something, and then decide. But yeah, definitely go searching because it'll help. I know a lot of people that it has. So.
Do you have anything to add about the Hope Scholarship or any advice there? No, okay. Just thought I'd ask. I do want to put in a plug. Thanks, Anna, in the chat. First of all, please, if you guys have any questions, feel free to either unmute yourself and ask or throw them into the chat. And also, if you stick around to the end, we will be raffling off that $25 Amazon gift card. This will also, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, is being recorded. So anyone who couldn't make it today will hopefully have the chance to hear all of y'all's really helpful advice. I wanted to, this isn't necessarily actually college related, but related to your senior year. Do you guys have any, like, what's a useful, maybe something you heard and have used this year, but any sort of advice for your senior year? It could be outside of the college application process, but we know this year has been very different. But any advice that you might have regarding senior year in general?
I say, because we always hear the term senioritis, which is very real, but take that senior year and finish as strong as possible. Go harder than you have went your past 3 years. Because I can say, like, my past 3 years, I've always settled for like all A's and maybe 1 B, 2 B's, but I've always known I can apply myself and get all A's. And this senior year, I did all A's, and it just feels great to do. And it looks great on your college transcripts, because that's what your college is going to be looking for, those official transcripts. And they want to see your progression, and that could determine if you get a scholarship at the school that you're going to as well. So even though you got senioritis and times are a lot different with COVID, finish strong and always just remember, like, what you're doing is going to pay off, because we're about to graduate, and I'm just so excited about that, because it's us that did all the worksheets and all the annoying homework assignments and this and that and that, had to go through all this stuff with school that got to the end. So thank you.
Yeah, and you get accepted based off your senior year and first quarter or first semester transcript. You get accepted based off of those, but at the end of the year, you do still have to submit all of your grades, and they can reject you if you end up just flunking everything.
Yeah, don't get rescinded.
That is all good advice. Is there anything fun you guys did to relieve some stress, or any stress relief ideas that you guys have? I know it can be a very overwhelming process for everyone, and everyone kind of hits their limit at some point during the year. Do you guys have anything that you did to manage that stress at all?
I would say it's important not to just be thinking about college 24/7 like I was, because it was very uncertain for me what my plan would be. I think it's important to just kind of blow off some steam every once in a while and definitely just hang out with friends and just not talk about college, because it's been like the topic of on everybody's minds this whole year. So it's good to just relax, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody's parents and neighbors and cousins and everybody's going to ask what you're doing for college and where you're going and all this stuff. And it's so obnoxious, especially when it's like February and you still don't know, or March and you still don't know. So it's just like what Henry said, take personal time, hang out with friends.
Definitely agree with that. I literally had to tell myself, live in the now. Do not keep thinking about your future. Just work to your future while you're in the now, but also enjoy the now, because none of it is promised and we never know, even when we think we got it all figured out, what the future has in store for us. And what I've been doing is writing. I started my poetry my senior year, and I really just found myself, found my passions, and just took a lot of time loving me. So that's how I've been getting through senior year. I see a question in the chat too.
Absolutely. So thank you. Is it Denzel? Denzel, I'm probably getting it wrong. I apologize. But he
No, you
said,
got it right. You're good.
okay. Just out of curiosity, how many schools did you guys apply to? So we touched on that a little bit, but if we could revisit that. And personally, I have about 15 schools that I plan to apply to, both Ivy and public. So just revisit, how many schools did you guys actually, I know someone applied to 15 schools.
Yeah, that was me. Bingo.
Would you, if you did it again, would you still apply to 15?
Most definitely. Because like I was saying right there, you really might think you got it all figured out, but then you never really know. And if it was up to me, I would apply to more. Like if I could go back in time, because what I didn't do was apply to more Georgia schools. And I definitely would have qualified for a lot of more Georgia scholarships. But, you know, I kind of had in my mind, I did want to go out of state, but I definitely recommend applying for as many as you can, so that you can always have your options open.
Good advice.
I applied to, I think, 9, and I will say some of those were panic applications. Like last minute, oh, wait a second, they have good merit aid type applications. Honestly, I want to do something very specific. Like I want to go into a very specific field. So I put a lot more time into researching like the extremely specific stuff available for that field at schools, and narrowed down my list a lot more. I think if there had not been the last minute panic applications, it probably would have been more like 4 or 5. But again, I applied early action and then got into a lot of my early action schools. So had that not been the case, I probably also would have done more in regular decision.
Anyone else on how many schools you applied to?
I just applied to 5, and it was a good number. I kind of knew from the get-go that Georgia Tech was where I wanted to go, so the other ones were kind of safety schools or a reach school. So 5 to me felt like the bare minimum that I wanted to apply to, and anything more was just additional work for myself.
Yeah, I applied to 9 in the end, but I think I was planning for like 7. And then once I got deferred from Georgia, I kind of freaked out and applied to like 2 more, just in case. So, yeah.
Esther, forget what you're.
Yeah, I applied to 8, I think. And they're mostly reach schools, but I did have 2 solid safeties. So definitely,
I was hoping for that in there.
I'd say 2 or 3 safeties is like the perfect amount, and then really apply to like almost every main Georgia school, like UGA, GSU, Georgia Southern, and then Georgia Tech if that's what you're into. Those are like some solid schools, and then Hope and Zell are always very nice, very nice.
So this comes from Maddie. We can revisit this a little bit, but did any of you guys not submit test scores? Did anyone go test optional? And this is going to be very subjective, but how do you think the schools that you apply to, did they, how do you think they weighed the SAT?
I sort of selectively went test optional. Like for my safeties and some of my targets, I submitted my test scores because I had them. But then for my reaches, which were basically just Vanderbilt and Dartmouth, I didn't submit them because I got below a 1500 and I kind of figured like, maybe let's just pretend those don't exist. Yeah. And so for the schools where I submitted them, I just based on what the admissions officers at those schools have said, the SAT is 3 hours of your life. If you take a prep class, maybe it's more like 30 hours of your life. But the general impression that I've gotten is, admissions officers understand that this is between 3 and 30 hours of your life, as opposed to 3.5 years of time in the classroom. So, it's for numbers purposes, I think they like to have a nice, pretty score that will look good on their little admitted class chart thing. But I don't know that it's all that important, honestly. Like if you have really strong essays and really strong grades, I seriously doubt that a lower SAT score is going to like fully count you out.
That's good advice. I think, it definitely depends so widely based on the school right now.
And then I did submit my SAT, and no, I don't think I did my ACT because I wasn't too fond of that score. But I did submit my SAT, and I'm seeing now like a lot of colleges, because of course COVID is going on, and what Maura was just saying, our understanding of you not having scores. But also when I was in my orientation for NCAT, they were saying like, you either can submit your test score so they can see your math score, or you will have to take like an acupuncture test to know what type of math class you're going to be admitted into. And that's basically for them to determine like your level within math. And acuplaces, I've taken the acuplaces for my technical college that I did do enrollment at before. It's not a bad test at all. It's basically just like a basic knowledge of math and reading test, but it's nothing like an SAT or ACT. But I know that's a lot of times why colleges want to see your scores as well too, so they know how to place you in classes.
All right, thank you. So you guys see there's a few other questions in the chat. Back to the counselor recommendations. So this is always tough because we don't always know our counselors very well. What was your experience with the counselor recommendations? Did you feel, how did that process go?
My counselor is Mr. Young, and he's amazing. And he will do just about anything for you, and his recommendations are always like spot on. And so I'd say, especially this, or I guess you guys are graduating or finishing junior year, but I'd say this summer, like form a relationship with them, email them like every week or every month or whatever, and just ask all the questions in the world, and they'll give you advice, but also write that you seek help and all this stuff in your recommendation, and it definitely helps.
Also, my counselor is Ms. Falcone, and she is a lovely person, but I'm going to be honest, I did not interact with her once before I started dual enrollment. And then she basically only knew me in the capacity of, being a person who she helped register for dual enrollment. I would say with counselor recommendations, because like 90% of people really don't know their counselor, it's really helpful for them and for you to have a super solid resume. If you have a really good like list of your activities, list of stuff that you've done that you're proud of, that you want them to know about and maybe mention in their recommendation, it makes everyone's life a whole lot easier because they don't have to struggle to, and I think they actually require a resume if you're asking for a recommendation. But like they don't have to struggle to remember the one interaction you've had over the course of the past 3 years, and you kind of get to control the narrative on what information goes into the recommendation.
That is also good advice. That
I
resume, so
definitely
if you
agree.
guys haven't, oh, sorry, go ahead. I was
I
gonna
was
say, if
just
you
saying I
guys
agree.
haven't gotten that resume together, this is the ideal time to do it, would be this summer in order to hand it off to all the people that are giving you recommendations. It'll be really useful for your college application and all sorts of applications that you'll be doing in the future, even during college and whatnot. So getting all that information together now would be really useful. Sorry, Rihanna, I was very confusing when I was talking over you. Apology.
You're fine. I was basically just saying that I agree with them 100%. Before COVID, my counselor, which is Miss Falcone, I was in her office probably like every other week, like just asking questions regarding my schedule, me being able to graduate early, just the possibility of that and many other things. But I know it's different with COVID going on. You don't get to have those hands-on interactions or those face-to-face interactions. And a lot of times you need to be able to pair face with a personality and. But I recommend like definitely, even if you don't meet your counselor, emailing them with questions that you may have about your schedule or your classes, or just if you're feeling any type of way, don't be afraid to reach out. And I feel like that's something that I just recommend to anybody, to always advocate for yourself and be yourself with your teachers or your counselors or any staff and faculty. I've always just been outgoing, and I feel like that's what leaves my mark with people when they're and I'm able to ask people for recommendations a lot easier because I'm me, and they'll remember you for being yourself. So I recommend that with anybody.
That's really good advice too. I think something that'll serve you really well in college and getting to know your professors and getting out of college what you want as well. So we have another question, if you guys don't have anything to add to that, and that is, did you guys notice during your searches any other schools that might have had great options? I think that was already mentioned, I forget who mentioned that, but really good options for merit aid. I think I always recommend, you want to look at schools where you are going to be in the top 25% of their academic profile, because they are going to be more likely to want to get you to the school. So that's always a good place to start. But did anyone else see any schools that were really offering a lot of merit aid?
So on my end, I gotta be honest, I think it was partly just sheer luck. I am not really in the top 25% of the people who applied to Chapel Hill. I think what really helped was my essays. Honestly, I think with merit aid, just one of the things you can do to kind of increase your chances is, first of all, research the fit for schools really carefully, but also try to make sure that fit reflects in the essays that you send them, because I like Georgia State did not give me as much merit aid as UNC did, and I think a lot of that was because the way that I wrote about my essay topics and the essay topics that I chose really reflected the parts of me that mesh very well with the community at UNC. And so I think they just saw that and really felt like it was a very good fit. So yeah, sorry, that's kind of vague. And there is kind of some element of like chaos, but it's definitely good to research fit and try to make sure you like show what a good fit you are for that particular school in the stuff you send them.
Absolutely. Great advice there. Anna added in the chat, make sure to check out, don't be scared of applying to private schools. The ticket price is going to be a lot higher than public schools, but as a lot of people have mentioned, they do have a lot of strong merit and financial aid available a lot of times. So don't be scared, go through the process if it is a school that you're interested in. Let's see, we've got actually a good question about demonstrated interest. So the idea of some schools might look at kind of how many contact points you might have, how many times you've contacted them, have you been able to visit, not really applicable right now, but just how much interaction you've had with that admissions office. Did you guys are not really at smaller schools, but I think that tends to be a thing with some of the smaller private institutions, but did you guys run across anything that might have mentioned demonstrated interest in your application process?
I think it helps a lot usually for most schools. Pretty sure UNC actually doesn't do demonstrated interest. Yeah, some schools will say if they do it or not. But I mean, I think it always helps, if you want to do a virtual tour or whatever, and something that records your email and your name down, like I think it's going to be helpful. They know you're interested. That's always great.
It's never gonna hurt, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's an online database or like some website where it lists like every school, and beside it, it will say like yes or no, or sometimes when it comes to demonstrated interest. And so you can see that like UGA only sometimes includes demonstrated interest. But then there's schools like Northwestern and Harvard and schools like that are just like, no, we're only going based off the numbers and you. But I'd say most times the only time you'll be able to show demonstrated interest is if you get like deferred and you have to write your new essay or whatever, or if you email the counselor, the admissions counselor, and just say like, hey, I was on campus last weekend and I saw this and this, can you tell me more about that? Stuff like that.
Also, for what it's worth, like on some level, the fact that you're applying, but like more so what you write about in your essays kind of is demonstrated interest. Like Henry mentioned, UNC doesn't do demonstrated interest, but I had to do an essay to apply to the Honors College, and I made sure to research UNC's honors program and be very, very specific in that essay. I found like specific classes that they offer through the Honors College that are relevant to what I want to study. I found a specific professor who's doing research that I'm interested in. And that kind of thing, even if they don't look at demonstrated interest in the have you signed up for a tour sense, like shows that you have, like it demonstrates interest as well.
Absolutely. The other thing,
add,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. You don't, it's not always about your college either. For instance, when you have scholarships, especially if I forgot to mention that, but you can apply for like alumni chapters of wherever you're from. So like Atlanta alumni chapters of a specific school. And I did that for NCAT. And in doing that, they basically asked me, why am I interested in NCAT? How do you show Aggie pride and things like that? And what I recommend is just like when you're applying for a job, you want to look at what that specific job is looking for on their campus. In their workforce. Or you would go to a college mission or find their core values, and you could basically kind of shape your interview to fit, shape your essay to fit basically those values and things, and how they would align with who you are or your experiences. And I definitely just recommend always trying to figure out like what a college atmosphere is like, so you can know when they're asking questions like that, so you can know what you need to be answering and what they're looking for in essay.
Another thing I would add is that our in-person admissions rep visits to the CCC or online, a lot of those people are the people that are reading your application. So it's a chance to have a face-to-face with them if you either online or in person, depending on how the next year goes. But just the more you kind of get to know the admissions rep from your region that's going to be reading your application, it gives them a little bit of a face when they're reading your essays and whatnot. So that's something that can be helpful. Let's see. I was thinking, so we have how or where did you find the best scholarships? We talked a little bit about that. If you guys want to throw any websites or anything specific into the chat that you might have used that you found really useful. And then we can also talk about it as well if you guys have anything to add to that topic. But if you have a website that you thought was really helpful, you can throw it into the chat as well.
There's an APS Google Drive of a whole bunch of scholarships, and most of them are local, I think. And then Grady also has a specific one for us, which I think are also local. But then just like unigo.com and scholarships.com, stuff like that. And then if you look up your major and then just say scholarships, you can get some through that.
I'm definitely keeping an eye on the ones that Mr. Young sends out in his emails, like Ryan mentioned, I think earlier on. Those are ones that, you know, they're often targeting Grady and want applicants for those. Let's see, any other questions? You guys feel free to unmute yourself as we wrap up if you have any questions that you want to ask that did not get asked yet. I do have.
Also with scholarships, I was gonna say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to keep cutting you off. Every time I
No,
kick you
you're
down,
not. You're fine.
I was gonna say, with scholarships, you're also gonna want to take advantage of mentorship opportunities. Like I joined EY my junior year, and they give their seniors a scholarship if you apply and you participate actively. I was in the SIS scholarship program, which I got in through Grady. I got a $500 scholarship from them from just being an active participant. And just like community service, you know, local organizations, a lot of them offer scholarships that you would never even know about. So I definitely recommend just being active in your community opportunities to get scholarships.
Also with jobs, if you have a job that's like a corporation or something, a lot of the times they have scholarships. Like Starbucks is very well known for having that. And then obviously Chick-fil-A, I think Target does as well. Just like if you work for big corporations, you can try to track some of those down. And if not, maybe ask your manager if they know anything from the inside.
That's great advice. Anything else on scholarships? Any other questions? I have one more for you guys before I check in with Anna, but other than that, I think we're close to wrapping up. Anyone? Okay. So my question is, what do you wish you knew at the beginning of the year? This is basically your chance for last minute advice that might not have come up already. We didn't talk about a ton of essay stuff or anything like that, but what do you wish you knew at the beginning of the year that you know now that might be helpful to pass along?
Don't take anything personally. I think that's the best thing. I got rejected from my top 2 schools, which kind of hurt, but now I'm obviously in a better place than where I was expecting to be. Like you could be the perfect candidate and you have no clue why they don't choose you. You have no say in anything. So just don't take any no's personally.
Absolutely. It could be because they wanted a trombone player that year and you were not a trombone player. So great advice.
Yeah, also just like it's a good idea to make sure that you and your family are on the same page about school and financial aid and so on. You definitely don't want to have we actually have no money saved for college conversation like right before you apply to schools. And I mean, like, you know, it obviously varies a lot from family to family, but it's good to touch base with your parents really early on just so that you can plan accordingly. And you know, not miss out on opportunities if they're able and willing to help a lot with school, and also look for more opportunities if they are not.
I wish I knew that just because the tuition price looks like a big dollar sign, that it doesn't mean that you won't be able to go to that school. The way that college works, which I'm just finding out, is at the end of each semester, that's when you're like, if your balance isn't cleared out or like covered by the end of the semester, you won't be able to go on. But what that means to me is basically all I gotta do is get the money every semester and apply for them scholarships to get them to add up. So don't allow money or distance to be a reason that you don't go to a school, because a lot of times we want to stay where we're comfortable out of fear of change. And a lot of times we don't go to college out of fear of not having the money or going into debt. But me personally, I declined out of those loans, and I'm just basically walking on faith. And, that's my plan. And
Oh, also, so this wouldn't necessarily apply to everyone, but if you want to go to grad school, like if undergrad is not it for you, like definitely be careful about debt, because like I want to get a PhD eventually, so I have like a decade's worth of tuition ahead of me. And it's good to take that into consideration when you're looking at financial aid packages and stuff, because undergrad costs money, but grad school can last even longer.
I'm sorry, I wanted to add on too. There's also the untraditional route too that I wish I would have known wasn't so well, it's so looked down upon. So I wish I would have took that more into consideration, because people, for instance, I just went to the dentist today and I asked the person who was doing my X-ray scan what did he major in college, and he basically said he went to a technical school for dental assistant and finished in 9 months, and he's doing the same thing that people go to college for 4+ years and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars doing. He's doing the same exact thing for a lot less money. So don't be afraid to take the untraditional route. Do what's best for you. And most of all, just always research and look at your different options, because you don't have to always do what seems like the norm.
That's really great advice. Words of wisdom from Rihanna. Henry, Ryan?
You can, to piggyback off of that, like go to a community college and knock out all of your essential credits, do all your math classes, science classes, whatever you need, and then you can transfer in and get like that more prestigious name on your degree, even though that doesn't really matter now. But it definitely helps. And then a piece of advice I would add would be to take advantage of connections, whether it's for scholarships, for school, for anything. It's definitely helpful in the long run.
I was trying to think if there's any advice, and I don't know that this is advice, but it is something that I was following kind of all throughout grading, and that's actually taking the AP exams seriously. If you go to a school that actually accepts that for credit, the way Georgia Tech does, it can be, I mean, just to give kind of a scope, like I'm taking the Calc BC exam on Monday, and that could get me out of an entry level, well, it would be second semester Calc 2 at Tech, which is a 4-hour class. So like that ends up being a lot of work that I don't have to do freshman year. So I would definitely say if you haven't started studying for your APs that are this week and next week, that's probably a good thing to help you out in college.
Dual enrollment is also wonderful. I didn't really start until this year, but I mean, at this point, I have like a year of college credit, in part because a lot of my classes this year were dual enrollment, and if you get a good grade in the class, you generally speaking will get credit for it, and all you have to do is pass like the final exam.
100% agree. I'm sorry, 100% agree with Mara with the dual enrollment. I'm going into college with 24 college essential credits. So that's a blessing, because that's less money and a head start for me going into college. So I could potentially finish with 3 years, So it's important that you take advantage of things that you get in high school that could transfer into college.
All right, my last advice would just be get a better idea. I just didn't have a good idea of what I was looking for in a college, and I don't know, maybe just do some research this summer before it's getting like real, you know what I mean? And then, maybe visit your local like Georgia schools and look at them. And my other piece is just try and get things done before your mom gets on you about it, because once she tells you to do something, like for me at least, I don't want to do it. So try and do it before she starts, putting the stress on you.
That is all such wonderful advice. You guys are amazing. I want to thank you guys so much for participating. I'm going to actually check in with Anna, but also wanted to mention, so I think we're going to send this out if we haven't already. We got a whole bunch of advice from the seniors when they applied for the CCC scholarship this year. And 3 of the top things I kind of saw in terms of responses were similar to what a lot of people have already said on the panel today. But one would be, don't compare your college journey to anyone else's. Everyone has their own path and everyone has a lot going on during the year. So don't compare yourself and your journey. Don't get attached to one school necessarily. There's 4,000 schools out there. If college is your choice for next year, there's a lot of different ways to get there, as has been mentioned. So don't get too attached to one. There's a lot out there. And over and over again, we saw start early. So you guys, by even listening to this, doing any of the workshops the last couple of weeks, anything you can do to get anything started before the beginning of your senior year is going to be really helpful. And I think everyone here would probably agree, although it is very hard. It's easy to say at the end. So get started early if you can. But thank you guys so much for participating today. We wish you so much luck in the next year when you start your college journeys, and also hope to check in with you maybe this time next year or during the holidays in December or January, so we can see how you guys are doing. Anna?
Yeah, we'd love to hear how things are going for you once you started college, but this has been just so helpful. You all are amazing. Can you hear me? Also, I was going to say, I've been putting all the names in a bowl here of the juniors who are here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the winner of the $25 gift certificate, and it is Chloe Brookshire. So Chloe, if you're still here, please stick around and give me your email address so that I can get this to you. Okay. Is Chloe still here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, I'm still here.
All right. So yeah, Chloe, just make sure you get me your email address and we'll do that for you. But I don't have any other questions because you guys have been so thorough and had so much great information, and it's just been really helpful. So thank you all. Juniors, if you have any last questions, go ahead and toss them out, but we should probably end pretty soon because I think it's been about an hour. But do make sure, juniors, that you come tomorrow. There's a 5 o'clock kind of overview to financial aid where we just hit on some basic terms and concepts that might make it a little bit clearer to you. I know if you haven't been through this before, which you haven't probably, unless you have an older sibling who has, it's just so confusing, just all the terms and the difference between scholarships and grants and gift aid and just all of that stuff. So we'll just talk a little bit about that really briefly tomorrow. You and or your parents are welcome to tune in at 5 tomorrow.
Thank y'all so much.
Right. You guys were an incredible panel. Round of applause. You guys
you're
so
really great. Thank you so much.
And best of luck next year, and best of luck to our juniors as they embark on this the senior year college application process.
All right, y'all have a good one.
Thanks.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you guys.
Have fun.
Thank you. So I
Bye,
actually,
guys.
if I could just stick around for like 5
Okay.
seconds.
Of
Oh, yeah.
course, yeah.
So do y'all have information available about like alternatives to just college? Like career paths and whatever, and technical school options and so on?
We do. We always need more. I mean, this year we have not been, I mean, if you're speaking to the CCC in general, I know when people come in, I always offer up as much. I definitely agree with alternative paths to getting to where you want to be. So, I mean, I always want to talk about it. We could always use more information if you have any ideas on how we can reach, reach that area of things better.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned earlier, I'm volunteering at this school for students with multiple disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to a lot of the people who work there are interveners, deafblind interveners. So basically they like work one-on-one with deafblind students and sort of help facilitate communication in the classroom. And I was talking to one of them the other day, and she mentioned that there are only like 10 deafblind interveners in Georgia, which is absolutely insane because it's to get the credential, it's an online course, 2 online courses. It's 6 credit hours. You don't need a 4-year degree. And then you need 100 hours of practical time in the classroom. And like, that's the certification. And it's a job that makes a decent amount of money, and like it's in demand. It's just not necessarily federally recognized as something that's needed for special education students who are deafblind.
Yeah, see,
So-
I would have never known that. That's incredibly
It's very
helpful
specific.
information.
Yeah.
Well, it is, but I mean, that's the kind of thing I wish we did know more about that and could get that information out to students. I don't know how to go about gathering that information, but that's
Well, so I'm happy to send along. It's the credential is through Utah State.
okay.
I'm happy to send along the website for the National Intervenor Credential Certification. Just like I was talking to Molly, who is the intervenor for one of the students at Ellis, and she was explaining like how uncommon it is. Actually, part of the reason I was talking to her about it is because for one of my majors, I want to get the credit hours for becoming an intervenor like worked in as credit through Carolina. And there are no interveners in North Carolina. There is not a
Wow.
single one.
Wow.
So yeah, I feel like more people should know about it, and just I thought y'all might be, I don't know,